This special presentation is brought to you by the United States Sports University. It's almost time. Dreams are about to come true. Tonight, we break down the top picks, the biggest question marks, and the players ready to hear their names called. This is our WKRG NFL Draft Preview Special. Here's News 5 Sports Director Gerhard Mathangani and sports reporter Gabriella Genereaux.
Welcome to the NFL Draft Special. I'm Gerhard Mathangani, joined by Gabriella Genereaux and Patrick Walsh. Guys, this is a really fun time of year because the NFL Draft process actually starts in the city of Mobile with the Senior Bowl each year.
Absolutely. It's really cool that we get kind of a first look at what is going to happen in the NFL Draft with the Senior Bowl. We get to see a lot of these guys on the field early on.
Yeah, Patrick, it's always really interesting because we see guys that might be going in the first round, might be going undrafted, but everybody has a chance to kind of prove their worth here at the next level.
Yeah, and I think it's great that we have so much talent just in and around the Gulf Coast that we see these guys throughout their high school careers go on to the college level and then make a name for themselves at the college level, so that way we get to talk about them right before the NFL Draft.
Yeah, the Senior Bowl has a new executive director, Drew Fabianich. In his first year, he talked about some of the things that he wants to see from the guys that start their careers in Mobile.
I want this game to become 100% of the participants are drafted. That's what I want, because that's the selling point. Not we had 10 first rounders or we had 42 in the first 55. It's I can sell to every agent around the country. Everybody that comes here gets drafted. Everybody. That's my vision. That's what I want. So that's what I'm shooting for.
And there is Drew Fabianich, the first-year executive director, did a great job with this year's game. Changed the time, changed some of the practices. I think it all worked out for the guys that are going to the next level. Let's go a little closer to home because we have a trio of guys that have ties to Mobile, Crestview, Florida, as well as Pritchard. We'll start with Lee Hunter, former Blount High School star, decided to come back to college after going to Central Florida. Then he went to Texas Tech, took some NIL money, but it was a great decision on his part to come back for his senior season.
Absolutely. Like you mentioned, he spent his last season at Texas Tech, had a really great year there, was able to build up his draft stock at 6'4", 330 pounds. He's a really big guy for the defensive tackle, and he definitely has a lot of upside and a lot that he can bring to the NFL Draft.
Patrick, we've got a chance to talk to him at Senior Bowl. He not only has the presence on the field, but he definitely has the personality off the field, and you heard it a lot during his interviews both in Mobile and at the Combine in Indy.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I mean, when you talk about a guy like him who was a graduate transfer, it's all about taking that next step and trying to really make a name for himself. And you could talk about how Texas Tech really poured into this football program, obviously made it to the college football playoff this year. Don't really want to remember that game if you're a Red Raiders fan, but really nice for Lee Hunter to be able to take that next step and take that gamble on himself, and I think it paid off pretty well.
Yeah, the former Blount High School star spoke in Indianapolis at the Combine.
I'm bringing to the team high energy. I'm a football player. You're going to love me in the locker room. You're going to feel my presence, and you're going to enjoy being around me daily. I ain't at my best yet. I still got a lot of work to put in. I still got to get better. I still got to grow and learn in many ways. So I just want to keep getting better and do what I do best. I can help. I can be a great person. I'm going to put the work in, and I'm going to help stop the run and get to the quarterback. It's a blessing to be here. I still ain't reached my goal yet and dreams yet, but I'm for sure blessed and excited to be here. My 5-year-old, she changed my life. She changed my life. She the reason I go hard. She the reason I do what I do, and that's my why. That's who I love, and that's who I go hard for. Nah, NIL, it made me do for all my people. I bought my mom a house, a car. I bought my brother 218 wheeler truck, so I'm just blessed. I'm blessed and excited to be able to do that for my family, my loved ones. My daughter, I always been a dad before NIL. I always had to make a way to provide for her, and I did that.
And another key star going into this year's Senior Bowl was Colin Lacey. He kind of has a double local tie. He went to Faith Academy as far as his high school goes, then signed with South Alabama, then eventually took his talents over to Louisville and had a really productive career there in the Bluegrass State.
Absolutely. In this last season, he had a lot of really great stats, 60 receptions for 635 yards with 2 touchdowns, and he averaged 10.6 yards per catch across 13 games. So definitely a guy that one of these teams can take a chance on and have him work on the special teams or as a wide receiver for them.
Yeah, I was about to say, not the biggest guy, but he is somebody, like Gabriella said, they can give you some prime production on special teams.
Yeah, and he played on a Louisville team that was in contention for the ACC, a conference that was so wide open up until that last week of the season, catching passes from former USC quarterback Miller Moss. I think he definitely made a name for himself, and Louisville, like I said, was in contention, could have also made the college football playoff this year.
That's right, Patrick. Got the chance to hear from Colin Lacey at the Combine.
I'll say Applewhite, he calling the right plays, and Carter Bradley give me the ball. And it just, my teammates, just my coaches just put me in the right position and let me eat, me running double moves, me running go routes, me just answering to their defense. I feel like Applewhite just put me in the right spot to dominate. My elite trait, I say my quickness and my balance with the football, making people miss. I say my time at South, I feel like I learned a lot from a freshman to my 4th year over there. I feel like it was a learning experience. It was some things I had to learn. I had to learn how to be I learned more about being a receiver, the details in the routes, the top of my routes, the seeing the coverages, just all that from Coach Smitty to Applewhite just molded me into a receiver I am today. And I feel like that made me a lot better when I went to Louisville and where I'm at now.
It's always cool to have former South Alabama guys go to the Senior Bowl because they get to play their last game there at home. That was the case for Devin Voisin this year.
Absolutely. It's really cool to see him finish out his season in a place where he's been playing at South Alabama. He's another one of these guys who has a lot of upside, is a little bit on the smaller side. So when a team takes a chance on him, it might be more for special teams, but has a lot to bring to the table.
Yeah, Patrick, he's played a lot of college football. The thing about that is the fact that he's got a lot of leadership going into the next level.
And you know he's loyal because he's one of those unicorns in college football. Spent his entire career at South Alabama holding a lot of school records. That includes 67 career games played, 172 receptions, and over 2,000 receiving yards. His senior year was a big one, and as you mentioned, it got him an invite to the Senior Bowl.
Yeah, very productive career for Devin Voisin. We got a chance to talk with him during Senior Bowl practices.
Be out here, it's not an unfamiliar environment for me. I get to compete with the guys in the room. I mean, every single one of them are excellent players. Getting to learn from each and everything they do. Hey, especially this guy, man. But yeah, just getting to learn from guys like that just they perfected their craft. I'm a student of the game, so I'm going to continue to do that with them. IQ of the game. So I've been around football for a very long time. 7 years. It's a long time for people, and people are always asking like, "Dang, why are you in college for that long?" But I know the game. All the ins and outs. I know how defenses shift. But then that's the mental part. When it comes to physical, I'm gonna show them that I'm a great route runner. I can play against top talent. That's what it takes to be here, and just prove myself.
And of course, we have talks with Alabama guys as well. Alabama no stranger to the top of the draft in any year. But one question this year has been their starting quarterback. Yeah. The #1 overall quarterback is pretty much set in stone, Fernando Mendoza from Indiana. Ty Simpson seems to be that second quarterback that will be taken off the board. However, the question is, where?
Right, absolutely. There's been a lot of talk. Can he go in the first round? He believes he can. I know he mentioned to media, he believes in himself and he thinks he can be a first-round draft pick.
Patrick, he's a guy that waited his turn. You talked about this with Devin Voisin. Waited his turn, stayed at Alabama, and I think it might have paid off as far as his leadership skills with the pro scouts.
Yeah, I mean, everyone wants to talk about how he had that perfect game against ULM in week 2 of the season, and he got off on such a hot streak for Alabama that it almost seemed like he could have made a jump to the #1 overall quarterback in the draft. But unfortunately, a little bit of a late season slip up for the Crimson Tide may have dwindled those chances, but I still think that he's a great quarterback, can fit anywhere on any team.
No question about it. More than 3,500 yards, 28 touchdowns, only 5 interceptions, really protected the ball well, leading Alabama to 11 wins and a spot in the college football playoff.
Alabama gets you, the most pro-ready than any other program. Whether it's the weight room, going against, the different type of players on scout team, regular of the NFL type system. From Coach Saban to Coach DeBoer, nothing's changed when it comes to, the standard and the type of players that, come in here and what, you're asked to, be a part of. So, that came in my decision, and I felt like that I was ready, and I know that I'm ready. So, wherever I go, whether I have to sit or play, just know that, I'm going to give it my all, and I'm going to give glory to God and be who I am. Like, a bunch of questions on me, a bunch of, just open doors about, what I can do. All I know is I'm going to be the best player I can be, the best Ty Simpson. I'm going to put my head down and work, so I did all 4 years here. And I just know that, I'm not going to not love this game and not worry. God's blessed me in so many different ways, and I'm going to give glory to Him and, be able to, play ball. When I come in our program, I'm a program changer. I don't just make, myself better, I make other people better. So if you draft me and you want me to be your franchise quarterback, I'm not just coming in to look after myself. I'm looking after the whole team and making sure that I leave it better than where I left it.
The quarterback of the defense is a guy that we know really well here in Mobile as well, former Mobile Christian star Deontay Lawson, who wore the green dot, spoke specifically with the defensive coordinator in Kane Womack. He's expected to be a guy that could also go to the next level and lead very quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. He was a big player for the defense for this Alabama team, especially over the past season. Has a lot of upside, has some leadership skills. I think will be a big name to look at in the NFL draft.
Patrick, he's a guy kind of like Connor Lew, where he did suffer some injuries as well, but the upside seems to be so high with him.
Yeah, and one of the most underrated aspects of being on the defense is just your ability to bring guys down in open field. And that's exactly what Deontay Lawson did over there at Alabama. Almost 300 career total tackles, 19 for a loss, 6.5 sacks. So he is one of those guys that when he's on the field, he is going to be an elite playmaker. And I really hope those injuries don't hinder his draft stock.
Yeah, you see and hear his leadership all the time. Here's another example.
It was good, just having the opportunity to, get out here in front of NFL teams, get back with the guys. Man, it just feels great. Definitely blessed, and don't take it for granted.
This special presentation is brought to you by the United States Sports University. This special presentation is brought to you by the United States Sports University.
Let's look to the other side of the state. The Auburn Tigers, led by Wkrg Falk, expected to have a really good draft to go on day one. And we talked to an insider.
Absolutely. Brad Law is someone who I know really well and someone who has followed this Auburn program really closely over the past few years. And we got the chance to talk to him on our show, Southeast Sports Plus, and he broke down everything you need to know about the Auburn NFL draft prospects.
How do you evaluate this entire draft class for the Auburn Tigers?
Yeah, small probably relative to what we've seen in the past, but the guys who go, I think, can make a long-term impact in the NFL, and it starts with Wkrg Falk. Wkrg had an explosive career at Auburn, and he's one of these guys that may be one of the best quick twitch interior defensive lineman at the next level. His last year at Auburn, they moved him on the inside. He played more on the inside than he had his previous 2 years and showed that not only could he hold up, but he could be effective. So he can play outside, he can play inside. Wkrg Falk is a guy that you should hear day one of the draft, and you should hear his name for many years at that level. So a guy who came in, and guys on the current Auburn team talk about what they learned from Wkrg Falk. And they talked about him carrying himself like a professional. And that's more than just, executing on the field, but he carried himself like a pro. And so I think he's been ready for this for some time.
Yeah, definitely projected to be a first-round draft pick in Wkrg Falk. Is there anywhere specific you see him going, or where do you feel like his assets translate best when it comes to the next level?
Truthfully, I don't know. I think he could fit in anywhere, and I'm not as locked into some of the projections. Or, we like to follow guys wherever they go. We got a lot of Seahawks fans who became Seahawks fans after Derek Hall went there and has had the early start, or the start to his pro career that he's had there. And so wherever he goes, wherever Wkrg goes, there are going to be a lot of Auburn eyeballs on those games on Sundays.
For sure.
Brad, usually when we see guys that do get drafted in the first round, they have that trait to them that translates to that next level and is one of the main reasons why they get drafted in the first round. What trait does Wkrg Falk have that he's getting all of this first round attention?
Yeah, Patrick, I'll kind of piggyback on the comment from the guys who are still on the Auburn team, and they talk about him carrying himself like a pro. His approach to practice, his approach to not just the reps, but nutrition, training table, meetings, film. He's just kind of got that total package. And you see this across other sports and even other walks of life, like people who, that's just a professional. It's the way they speak. It's the way they help others. It's the way they take coaching. He kind of has all of those elements in one, which is why the NFL teams have been impressed with him and why he shouldn't have a terribly steep learning curve at the next level.
For sure. Have you heard any comps maybe from the NFL guys or maybe the scouts or even people from Auburn? Any comps to players that we see in the NFL right now or maybe in the past, what he can project, what his ceiling might be on that next level?
Well, that's a really good question, and I wish I had a better answer for it.
It's always hard, Brett. It is.
Yeah, and there are other people who study those comps and who make those comps that are a whole lot better in better position than I am to do that. So, no, we're kind of again, we're going to kind of wait and see where he goes and what he does, and just be a fan of Keldrick from here and watch that pro career.
Absolutely.
I know Keldrick was there at Pro Day and he got to speak with some of the media, and a big thing for him was that he said he is a leader and he stuck with this Auburn team through thick and thin and he was able to lead them. What do you feel like the NFL teams, why is that such a big asset for them?
Well, because there's so much money tied up in these players now. You have to be you have to take it seriously as your career. You can't have a bad day at practice. You have to have a short memory, and you have to make others around you better. And that's his approach. So, all right, what do the coaches want from me? That's number one. How do I align that with what I expect from myself? How do I make others around me better? And how do I fit into the professional culture of the organization? And I think he's excited to go to that and to join an organization that professional sports amateur sports aren't as much mirroring amateur sports as they are professional sports now in this day and age, but there's still a jump to be made from doing it from at the college level to the pro level, and I think he's hungry to do that, which has gotten the attention of these teams.
For sure. This might be kind of hard to quantify, but would love your take on it. We see a lot of guys from the other side of the state, over in Tuscaloosa. They also kind of have that workhouse factory as far as churning pros out. Like, when Coach Saban was there, that was their main thing. First rounders all the time. Is it probably even more impressive for Keldrick Faulk that he had to do it through such coaching turmoil and not a lot of on-field success? Because it feels like when things are going right, Coach Saban could just be like, hey, look at this first rounder, look at this first rounder, look at this first rounder. And Faulk almost had to be intrinsically motivated.
Well, I think, it's a very good question, and I think it's a nuanced question. And probably has a nuanced answer, and I don't want to bore people with an overly long answer. I'll say Keldrick came to Auburn with that mindset, though. That didn't have to be, bred into him. He was a professional in a lot of ways when he got to campus. The NFL is so good at finding players wherever they are. And it doesn't matter if you go to a school that has produced a lot of first-round picks or a school that's produced a few first-round picks or a Division II school that has never produced a first-round pick. The NFL will find you if you're a talented player. And if your vision and your talent and your attitude align with being a professional, they will find you. And the fact that Keldrick really didn't have to have that bred into him, but he got to show others what that looks like, I think that's his biggest selling point to these NFL teams.
Obviously, Keldrick Faulk is just one of the former Auburn Tigers that will be hoping to hear his name called in Pittsburgh in just a couple of weeks. But I feel like Connor Lew is kind of an interesting story. Obviously, with the ACL tear early in the season, maybe hindered his draft stock a little bit. Would you see him as one of those low-risk, high-reward type players that we see in this draft?
For sure. Absolutely. A guy who came in his freshman year, took over his freshman year for a seasoned veteran at the position who got hurt, and then Connor stepped in and the team didn't fall off any at all, and it was a major, obviously a starter and an anchor on the offensive line over the next 2 years. The center position is the most underrated or underappreciated position on the field. He's the only guy that is guaranteed to touch the football every single snap. And not only that, but he's calling out the assignments. He's making reads at the line of scrimmage. Connor is cerebral He is physical, he is aggressive, and he's got a mean streak when he puts that hand on the ball and gets ready for the next play. So, yeah, I think you described it perfectly. Low risk, high reward. Cannot wait to see him, again, get into a part of that professional culture. And, you know, he may not be a guy that on the offensive line is going to be locked in as a starter right away, but I think he's an excellent addition to a locker room and a future starter in the NFL.
Yeah, Brad, as you and I know, Connor is a little bit of a quiet guy, but he also is a huge leader in the locker room. And I know he set his sights on being the team captain this year, and he was able to do that. What do you feel like that adds to his draft stock going into this year?
Yeah, at that position, you kind of need to be that. And I mean, we can talk about some of the great NFL centers and what they brought. Again, they're smart football players. They're able to react quickly, and they don't mind raising their voice. You have to. You're right. You're literally in the middle of all of the action. And so for him to seek out being a leader, being a captain, for him to live up to that role, absolutely helps him at the next level. Again, he's going to go into a place. He's going to understand what his role is as soon as he goes into that organization, learn what they expect, and then fall right in line with that.
Absolutely. Let's stay on that offensive line because Jeremiah Wright's another guy that showed some presence, especially at the Senior Bowl and highlighted moments here in Mobile. We got a chance to see him, up close and personal. What are some of the ways that you've seen he improve his draft stock over the course, I would say maybe over the last 6 weeks of the season, and then, of course, now in the Pro Day as well as in the Senior Bowl?
Well, as Gus Malzahn used to say, there's nothing like experience, and Jeremiah has that. He's been a part of a couple of different offensive systems in his time, so he's had to learn quickly. He started, I think he came to Auburn maybe as a defensive lineman, and so he knows both sides of the ball intellectually. He is a mature player. Again, he doesn't just take coaching well, he seeks out. He actively wants to be told how to improve. And so, standing up against the monsters you face on the SEC defensive lines over and over throughout his years of play, he's a seasoned, experienced, smart, physical player who, again, going against those SEC defensive linemen, the level of physicality that it takes week in, week out with no breaks. That's what a lot of these guys who come from SEC lines, the trenches on both sides of the ball, you understand playing in the SEC, there's not a week where you can take off or you can let down, and it's even more that way at the next level.
Keyron Crawford's a guy that I think he's really intriguing as it relates to the next level because that position is one of primary need for everybody, and it feels like if there are a couple of sleepers, it could be, where he is, where he plays. How do you project from what you saw him, where you saw him at Auburn, to what he can be on that next level?
I think epitome of low risk, high reward for Keyron. Yeah. His stock shot up this past season at Auburn. He was maybe the highlight of summer and fall camps, especially in the way that he spoke as a leader. He became more vocal. He became more explosive physically. Remember, this is a guy that wasn't playing football throughout junior high and high school.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's still some raw, there's still some rough around the edges. And as he gets even more professional coaching, he got outstanding coaching at Auburn. There's no question about that. And as he continues to develop with even more professional level coaching in the NFL, I mean, this is a guy that can be, I think he can be a lead edge rusher for an NFL team within the next 3 to 5 years.
Absolutely. Okay, so I'm going to ask you to put on your fortune teller hat for a second. If you were to project out maybe the next 4 to 5 years with all these guys' career, who do you think makes the biggest impact on their team, who's maybe ready to take that next step and be able to flourish immediately over the first half decade of their career?
I think, Jeremiah is probably the one that will be the biggest gamble for a team, but I sure hope he gets a shot. I think Keldrick is the obvious choice for longevity. I'm going to talk about all 4 guys. Isn't that a political way to answer this question?
I love it.
Connor, I think, has a chance to quietly do it, but you just don't hear as much about the center as you do the explosiveness of the edge position. Highest ceiling might be Keyron. I think longevity, Keldrick is the guy right now who teams are looking at and salivating over and going, this guy could play 12 years.
Brad, I'm just going to add on to that real quick, because for me, I feel like Keyron Crawford is just such an intriguing guy here, especially when you think about the fact that he started playing football his senior year of high school. So do you feel like teams will look at that and think, wow, what else can we do to this kid that he's only been playing football for 5 years now?
Yeah, if this was Keyron going into year 5 or so of playing football and he was a freshman in college or sophomore in college, we'd be talking about a guy who was going to be a first rounder in a few years. Yeah, I think this, again, low risk, very high reward. This is a guy who you could be talking about the team that takes him really did their homework, really did a great job in scouting, and somebody may get a raise or promotion because they're the one who said, let's take Keyron Crawford in this draft.
We thank Brad Law for his time on Southeast Sports Plus. Patrick, as we get ready for Thursday and the opening round of the draft, I'm really excited to see where those Senior Bowl guys go.
Yeah, and it was really cool getting to see all of them on the field and off the field in late January down here in Mobile. I'll be very interested to see where each of them go in the NFL draft in Pittsburgh.
It's a very strong history for the last 4 seasons. More than 100 players that started in Mobile heard their name called in the NFL draft. Looking forward to Thursday in Pittsburgh. Thank you so much for joining us for our draft special.
Thanks for joining us for the WKRG NFL Draft Preview Special. We'll see you after the names are called. This special presentation was brought to you by the United States Sports University.